To be self-aware of another person is to be a student. To be self-aware and master myself is to become the master. Leadership is about knowing and leading yourself more than it's about leading anyone else. And if you get that one thing, you will excel as a leader. G'day ladies and gentlemen of the Cambridge University Officer Training Corps. My name's James Greenshields, and I was asked by Colour Sergeant Al Stafford to have a chat to you in respect to, well, leadership development and emotional literacy, emotional intimacy, and the work that we do. First, just quick big background of who am I. I was 17 years as Australian Army officer, regular officer, served in the 2nd Cavalry Regiment as my predominant regimental experience, as well as training Armoured Corps people. The operational experience I had predominantly was as a combat team commander of Combat Team Eagle in southern Iraq, which actually was under what was then known as M&D Southeast. General Richard Sharif was the British officer commanding, and the British element was we were like their flank guard in their operation. So an awesome experience I had over there, very, very honoured to have been put in that position of leading Australian soldiers on a multinational deployment. So the thing was that when I came back, a number of things happened over there, as they tend to do on operations. As many of you may know, I came back very wounded inside. I had developed post-traumatic stress and depression, and when I left the military I also went suicidal and almost took my own life. In the last 10 years, I've been able to reforge myself, come on a journey home, rebuild my life with my family and deep connections with everyone I love, to now live a life which I could never have talked to you about when back in those days. Because as the phoenix must die and burn to be forged in its own ashes, that's very much my own journey as well, which so often happens with people from traumatic experiences. When a person can move through and grow from the trauma, post-traumatic growth is actually a psychological and emotional condition which can occur, and then one can go on from there. I myself have been able to let even post-traumatic growth go, because no longer does that part of my life dictate who I am. It was an experience from which I've learned, integrated, and now forged my way forward. So my identity is not linked to that. And as you'll know, as individuals, our identity can be very quickly attached to something, be that a student, be that whatever it is, and you guys are studying varying ways, you're studying varying disciplines that will assist you express yourself into the world. And that's what they are. They're disciplines of your self-expression in the world, be that in a formed, structured framework of a career or as a profession. But still, what it is you expressing yourself into the world and giving your gifts to the world. And so often we forget this. All leadership for me starts with understanding self first. Our mantra is prepare yourself before you prepare your organisation. And from that space, the first question I'll ask a person on any of our programs is, who are you? Now, I don't mean, who am I, a consultant or an army officer, a tradesperson, a doctor. They're all roles you play in life. I'm talking something deeper than all that. Past identity. Who are you at your essence? What are you connected to? Now, from a psychological point of view, we might go down positive psychology and associate that with the meaning, something bigger than self-meaning. From a spiritual or religious point of view, I might connect that to my divine, my divinity, to God, to Great Spirit. I'm an Australian, and the Indigenous here called it Great Spirit, which is their connection to their divinity. It's called many things in many different languages and traditions. So an understanding of that and that essence, whatever it is for you, be that true self or be that divinity, it's really, really pivotal, because when things go foul, like so often they do in the leadership role, we find ourselves in a pickle, and we've got to lead our team out of that. Then we're going to be called on to connect to something really, really deep within inside ourselves, to develop that emotional, that emotional intimacy, but that intestinal fortitude, that courage, that moral compass that will allow us to lead the best possible way we can. For who are you as a leader if you don't know who you are as a person? And so often this belief that we separate ourselves as a leader to who we are as a person. And what I've witnessed in assisting people for over 10 years now in finding their true self and go and express themselves in the world in their chosen environment is the reason why they're coming to me in the first place is that schism, that dichotomy of life has caused a crash inside. It's called a fracture of the soul. There is a British military historian who I studied when I was in Australian Command and Staff College. He was called John Keegan, and he wrote a book called The Mask of Command. Some of you may be aware of his work. Well, the thing that I always took away with that, it never sat right with me that I'd have to put this mask on to be someone that I'm not as an Army officer. So just two quick situations that demonstrate what I'm talking about. Firstly, being in an incident site where my vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb for 10 hours before we could get extracted. Actually, an awesome Brit UXO the EOD team, the Explosive Ordnance team came in and they were the ones that actually helped us extract because of the pickle that we found ourselves in. That point there when the guys looked at me and they found my Kevlar outer shell of my helmet some 80 metres from the vehicle. And the guys that found it wrote on the inside, hard as nails, boss. And I refused casualty evacuation because I refused to go without my men. So we fought our way out of that site. So there's one example there. Well, the next time I rolled on a mission, I got lined up by a guy with a rocket-propelled grenade again. And if it wasn't for Private Smith on the vehicle in front of me with his covering his arcs, he put a suppressive burst of fire down that enabled the person actually recoiled and the rocket missed me and hit a poor lady's kitchen, unfortunately for her, but missed me. That moment we dealt with the situation. After we dealt with the situation, we extracted ourselves from the township and I put us into what I'd call the ring of steel in the desert. So we're 10 kilometres from anyone, no one could get anywhere near us, and I got everyone in. And we actually had the British military commander at the time was Colonel. He was the detachment commander on base, and I had him with me. So there was probably over 250 people there. But I was the commander because I was in charge of force protection. So I pulled everyone in, and I stripped all body armour off, all weapons, everything. I went clean skin, and I pulled everyone into the centre, and I got Private Smith out next to me, and I looked him in the eye, and I said, "Smitty, it was 63 degrees." In the shade today. You were on sentry for 4 hours. There was every single reason why that moment where that person popped their head out with the rocket, you had every excuse not to be vigilant. You were vigilant, and because of your vigilance, I go home to my family. And I wept. In front of 250 soldiers, all body armoured up, all geared up, I cried with absolute gratitude for this man who'd saved my life. And then I turned to every one of them and I looked them in the eye and I said, it doesn't matter why we're here. We've got to get everyone home as best we can. So let's focus on the people next to us because that's the reason why we're going home to our loved ones. Now, out of those two situations, 10 hours of stoicism in an incident site refusing to be casually evacuated, or standing there and allowing myself to be seen, which one do you reckon my soldiers remember? It's the second one. Why? It's because I put down this mask. I allowed myself to be open. I allowed myself to be seen. Connection is all about emotion. And if we don't understand emotion, then we cannot truly connect. A relationship with no emotion becomes sterile and it will die. A natural course will die. It's really important for leaders to understand emotion because otherwise you won't understand how your team works. And also you will be buffeted by emotion, you'll be triggered. Now what does triggered mean? It means that I have an emotional response to something external to me that I'm not in control of. And that's called triggering. And if a person's been traumatized, then their level of triggering increases dramatically. But as a leader, to be able to remain in balance, which is such a pivotal characteristic of the warrior trait. We use a lot of warrior archetype through archetypal Jungian psychology. We use the warrior as a great example of how to develop qualities to assist a person lead in that respect. And if I'm out of balance as a leader, then what's going to happen with my team and inside my team? Excuse me. So it's really important. If I don't know self, I will become very vulnerable to the environment around me. My environment will engage me, I won't engage it. And so many of you are studying for examinations that's coming up, etc., as my understanding. Another thing that I talk to people about is you control 3 things in life: your thoughts, your words, your deeds. You don't control anything else. Think about it. Now, we might say, no, they can, like an examiner controls what happens in the exam. Well, that's your mindset operating in that environment. You're saying the environment holds power over you. One day I had a guy come to me, he was 18 at the time, he just failed 5 out of his 6 subjects in nursing. And I said, so why do you want to be a nurse? And he said, he gave me a picture of standing next to a bed with a person in there, and if he had the knowledge that could actually help this person be able to walk out of that room and not have to come back, that is a sense of accomplishment inside himself. I said, let's work with that feeling, because in essence, that's what we all want. We want to feel that our expression into the outside world is met with an inner sense of accomplishment. So I said, what are you going to do? And he says, what's your objectives, what's your goals? I asked him. And he said, I want to get 75% point average halfway through the semester and 65% by the end of the semester. That might give you a bit of an indication of where his mind was at the time. And I said, do you control getting that percentage reflection from when you go into an examination? And he said, well, yeah, because it's about how much I study. And I said, so if it was how much you studied, then that would mean the only way I could do that is if I had complete control over every answer I gave, which would mean that the examination would have to be simply multiple choice. Think about it. That would be the only way that I could ensure that it was a definitive, everything that I put in was definitive, that all my work was the reason why I was going to get that mark back. But we know that examinations all have short answer, essay style questions, etc., where some form of subjectivity from an outside person comes into the marking. And so what he's doing by saying 75% point average is he's giving his power away, and he's not controlling 3 things: his thoughts, his words, his deeds. So what we did is we went back to the course guide for the subject to explain why nutrition was a key element of being nursing. And then we took all the stuff that was the assessment criteria at the start of the course guide, and we sat him next to, in his mind, sat him next to the bed where he's able to go, right, what do I need to become confident, capable and credible with this information so that I can help that person in that bed walk out that door and not have to come back? What do I have to do inside myself to feel confident, capable and credible? And that changed his whole mentality about learning and about the information that it wasn't just about rote learning, it was about learning for a purpose. Go back to this whole thing you're learning for. It's about your professional expression into the world. You're helping the world in some way, shape or form. Well, let's hope you do. Otherwise, what's the point? Because a leader must know their why. If they don't know their why, they'll become lost very, very quickly. They'll wander in darkness very, very easily. So funnily enough, this guy goes into examination call. He texts me after he comes out and he says, James, that was the best, I still feel awesome. That was the best examination I've ever done. He got a 95% average across all his 6 subjects because of focusing on 3 things: thoughts, words and deeds. What can I control? Put myself in this situation. Why do I need to know this knowledge? What's my why? And that why drove him for a deeper interest into the subject, to give him the capability to go, right, this is why I'm learning it and this is how I can utilize it. So the leader must understand why, because it provides context. It's like if you're trying to tell soldiers to go in and take down a house or clear a house, and you want them to buy in, well, you want them to own the plan, well, get them to make the plan. Get them to be involved in making the plan. They've got to understand why. So you give them that information and then they start buying into the plan. And quite regularly when I was put in the situation where I couldn't share the why, it became a lot harder to actually motivate people to do things which were not necessarily their first thought. So providing that why from Genesis is really, really important. I also want to mention what's called the functional approach to leadership in Australian military doctrine. For me, it's a really, really awesome set, basic understanding of the certain functions of leadership that you require. And that just has three elements to it: individual needs, group needs, and task needs. And realistically, if you look at a leader's role, it's all about balancing these. But my point to a group last week that are in charge of officer training here in Australia was there's something missing in this model. We talk about the individual, but who is the individual? The individual is the individual members of the team. And then we look at the team as an entity, and then we look at the task. The issue there is self is missing. And self is a critical function to this. Go back to my whole point. If I don't understand who I am, how can I lead? If my leadership philosophy is not built on a deeper expression of myself, then it becomes like quicksand. I can fall very quickly. The foundation stone is not laid appropriately. Here at Emergent Leaders Foundation, we don't actually use leadership models. We talk more about paradigms. We're all about busting limiting paradigms which stop us really seeing how to take an obstacle and turn it into a challenge. We're all about actually moving beyond resilience, because if you look at it, resilience requires an adversary. And an adversary is simply my perception of the situation. And if I'm able to shift my perception of the situation, all of a sudden that person or situation doesn't become adversary, they actually become something which can assist me grow. Remember, growth is based on some form of resistance is required with growth. So the framework we operate from is firstly purify self. And then when I know who I really am and I've purified myself, so I'm not operating from subconscious programs or emotional patterning or someone else's values, not mine, I'm operating from a deeper understanding and connection within myself. I'm operating from an emotionally pure and connected place, and I'm operating from my own principles and values. When I'm operating from that space, I'm naturally going to bring and draw to me, attract a team which is more in line with who I am. My team will know who I really am. And therefore, if you think about it, communication will be clearer. There won't be as much confusion about who you are and does the boss think this, does the boss think that, whatever it is. Ambiguity leaves when I completely turn up. So I am unifying my team from this emotionally literate, solid, values-orientated place. And then from that place, the third stage is we amplify our effect. And so purify self, unify team, and amplify effect is the framework in which we utilize for people. But purification of self continues to happen constantly. And I always do a self-appraisal whenever I'm in a leadership situation, which is constantly, if I'm simply facilitating, if I'm with my children, if I'm out there doing something else in the world based on our work, then I'm constantly evaluating, checking in with myself and becoming very, very comfortable simply operating from who I am and choosing at times to say no to certain things which previously before I would have said yes because I wouldn't have I feared what other people thought of me, or I needed to say yes for external validation or approval or any of those other emotional patterns or subconscious programs. But the more we be able to, as leaders, purify ourselves and know ourselves deeply, then the better we're able to unify our team and amplify our effect. One of the biggest things I'm noticing at the moment in the leadership space is this whole thing about theory versus practice. There are so many people who believe they understand the theory of self-awareness, self-knowledge, etc. Yet they talk about knowing another person. Now, to be self-aware of another person is to be a student. To be self-aware and master myself is to become the master. Leadership is about knowing and leading yourself more than it's about leading anyone else. And if you get that one thing, you will excel as a leader, because it automatically puts you in the top 5% of leaders. Most leadership at the moment is projection, and it is fear-orientated management. It's not leadership. Leadership is all about a heart-mind connection. Now, it's the unification of the heart and the mind. It's the navigation of the relationship, and relationship must have emotion in it. Emotion connects people, connects two beings, two sentient beings. And that relationship is a function of leadership. Leadership is all about relationship. So it doesn't matter if I am following a leader higher than me, or if I'm leading a series of followers below me, or I'm within my peers and we're operating on a level playing field. It doesn't matter. That is all about relationship. And if I know who I am and I'm really pure in that place, then I'm going to lead from that place. And my team will be far more harmonic. So it's really, really key to understand that it all starts with self. Now, the reason why people are stuck in the theoretical world is because of the refusal to go into the emotions which are stopping them to connect deeper inside themselves and own that level of self. To let go of the limiting paradigms and beliefs that they have inside themselves about who they are and what they truly want and how they'll express themselves in the world. And that's key and critical for a leader. So one of the key things that a leader needs to be able to do is self-assess, self-appraise, self-adjust, and then solidify so that they can move forward, making a decision based on a heart-centered approach. And that's what I refer to as a heart-mind connection. Now, the heart is reading so much stuff. Look into the physics of the heart at the moment. It produces 5,000 times more electromagnetic energy than the brain. Yeah? The understanding the connection between mind and heart actually, a lot of the time, go back to the ancient traditions. Don't necessarily just look at science at the moment. Some of the ancient traditions, especially not just in the East, but Western esoteric traditions as well, will give us a deeper understanding of how to unify these two things. I've covered a lot today. The key messages that I've found really valuable as a leader are, firstly, know who I am and purify that. Constantly self-adjust and constantly work on myself. And by working on myself, I'm becoming a better version of me, which naturally means I'm becoming a more balanced, more effective leader. And the team is becoming more harmonic, and when it's more harmonic, the effect it puts out into the world, into the universe, becomes even more dramatic. It's amplified. Good luck with your studies, good luck with your professions, and remember, leadership is about being of service, not in service. Much love.